So listen, you've heard all this talk of this big sticking point here, specifically on health care. Give me 4 minutes. We're going to go through. It's a reality check. You've heard a lot of claims here. So let's break it down. Okay, big picture. Let's start with something that affects 24 million Americans, and that's Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act. Same thing. 24 million people use Obamacare for their health care. Most of them, the vast majority, get these special tax credits, right? These tax credits that they're eligible for that help lower their premiums. Those credits are going to go away at the end of this year. They're supposed to expire at the end of this year. And that's the chart you're looking at. The end of this year, let's say somebody pays on average $888. It'll go up to $1,900 next year. So part of this shutdown is this. Democrats say, we got to figure this out. We got to negotiate. We can't let that happen. Republicans say, OK, but let's open the government and then negotiate on extending it or not or tweaking it or whatever. We'll figure that out in October or November. Democrats say, no, the moment has to be now. They don't really buy that Republicans will negotiate. They see this as their best chance for leverage here. They say, we don't have time to wait because people are planning now. The marketplace is open in a month. They're worried people are going to get notices about insurance spiking and drop coverage, et cetera. OK, so that's one piece of this, right? This discussion over health care relates to these ACA, you'll hear them called subsidies or tax credits or whatever. That's one piece. Here's the other piece of this, and you've heard this a lot. You've heard this over and over again from Republicans. They say Democrats want to give free health care to undocumented immigrants. You heard the vice president say it right at the top of the show. A new ad out from Republicans today says basically that. Watch.
Democrats are grinding America to a halt in order to give illegal immigrants free health care.
Democrats say that is not at all true.
That is a bold-faced lie, and it really shows how desperate they are.
Okay, so what is the reality here? Start with this. Undocumented immigrants who come across the border, who've been flagged for deportation, they cannot get Medicaid. They cannot get Obamacare. They can't get on the Affordable Care Act. That is not legal. Democrats are not trying to change that. Democrats are trying to restore access to certain federal health care money for a group of people from whom Republicans stripped it from earlier this year. This is a group of people, about 1.4 million people considered lawfully present. Let me say that again because you're going to hear it. Lawfully present. This is kind of like this fuzzy area here, and it's critical to this whole thing, to this whole discussion. So with that, let's bring in Sahil Kapur. Sahil, let's talk about this semi-gray area, right? Lawfully present people. They're not technically considered, legal immigrants. They're also not truly undocumented, right?
Yeah, absolutely, Hallie. The key thing to know is these are people the U.S. government says are allowed to be here in the country, at least for now. They're not undocumented. They are, in fact, very documented. The government has their papers. They know who they are. These are people who, in most cases, are trying to go through the legal process of becoming lawful permanent residents and eventually citizens. Take a look at this graphic in terms of who we're talking about here. A total of 1.4 million people who are considered lawfully present, people like refugees and asylees, people on temporary protected status or TPS, DACA recipients. These are, again, people the government has said are allowed to stay in the country, perhaps have work permits for now. They're not subject to deportation orders. The Republican argument sort of conjures this image of people who are storming over the border and immediately signing up for Medicaid or Obamacare. That is not how any of this works. That is not what Democrats are trying to allow. That is not what current law does allow. All the way going back to 1996, a law signed by Bill Clinton prohibits any federally funded health care benefits from going to people in this country illegally. Democrats are not trying to change that. What they are trying to do is reverse a piece of President Trump's so-called big, beautiful bill that would take away health care eligibility for those 1.4 million people who are, again, lawfully present in the country.
Okay, but then explain this, because the White House is tweeting out a section of the bill, because they've said, the Republicans have said this. Look, it's in the text. It's in the text of the bill of what Democrats are proposing. And there's this section that says, it says alien Medicaid eligibility. What's that about?
Yeah, that is a section that outlines that exact restriction, Hallie. Alien, by the way, is just the legal term for non-citizen. What they're talking about there is not people in the country illegally. They're talking about the new categories of lawfully present immigrants that they would exclude from health care coverage. So at the end of the day, it's the same argument. It's part of that so-called big, beautiful bill, the health care section. Democrats are trying to repeal the entire health care section because that's the part that includes $1 trillion in Medicaid cuts, which Democrats are insisting on getting rid of as core to their demand, Hallie.
We thank you for watching. And remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.